If you're seeing this video, it's because you're going through some changes in your life where reality is starting to appear differently. Maybe your beliefs are changing about the nature of the universe, the way that things are, and it's very disorienting. I've been there, I relate. You're not going crazy. I want to emphasize that you're not going crazy. All you're doing is waking up. Your spirit is waking up. This is happening everywhere right now. It happened to me. There's two ways that this happens. Well, who am I to say there's only two? There's probably lots of ways it can happen. But the two that come to mind for a spiritual awakening, one can be more gradual, like the sunrise, where the sun slowly starts to illuminate the world around you. And that's probably the more healthy way. Or it can be very abrupt, which happened to me, where it can actually be painful. Kind of like when you're in a dark room and you can't see anything and the lights get flipped on. Ow! Your eyes start to hurt and everything is just so much to take in all at once that it actually hurts. And that's what happened to me. And if it happened to you too, I just want to say you're not alone. It's very disorienting. I know how you feel. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience in how it happened. I was raised in a religious home. So I'm Mormon. That's my background. I've talked about that in other videos. And I love my Mormon heritage. There's still a lot of true things that I still hang on to. I don't think every religion has the whole truth, but that's a story for another day. But when I started to question my faith more deeply, it wasn't providing good answers to the questions that I had. I felt that it was not providing adequate answers. The answer was either, oh, we don't know this, or that hasn't been revealed yet. But they seemed like pretty simple answers, so I started to look for answers in other places and started to find what I felt were answers that led me away from my faith. It brought me to a point where I really wasn't sure about God or spirituality at all. I became agnostic, which in some sense is just to say I didn't know what I stood for, right? Being agnostic can actually be kind of dangerous because then you can be more easily manipulated by the systems of control that we have. Because if you don't stand for nothing, if you don't stand for something, what do you stand for? If you're not standing in a particular place, you can be moved. There's a plane up there. An important part of my journey as well throughout all of this, and let me say, I did always err on the side of hope that there was something more. But at the end of the day, I thought, no one can know for sure. We're just here in this life. Let's just live our life. An important part of my journey was self-medicating with psychedelics. So that also led to my points of view that maybe there's something more, because the sensation that I had when doing psilocybin or THC was that I was more in touch with my what felt like a higher part of myself, or my spirit, or what have you. So that always had me erring on the side of maybe there is something more, although I'm not totally sure. So this year is when everything changed. And this happened in May. And the weeks leading up to this experience, I was getting some really interesting insights about just the world and how everything is energy. Everything is energy and vibrations, and you see the same repeating patterns throughout nature, from our bodies to the world around us, and it's these fractaling, spiraling patterns, the same patterns you see when you're having a psychedelic experience. And I thought, why is this? I mean, you see it in the trees right there, right? With the central column and all the branches sprawl upward. You see it in my hands within the middle, and these appendages, they sprawl outward from the middle. You see it in our veins, you see it in the neurons in our brain. see it, you can't see the mountains, but at the top of the mountains, there's rivers running out in sprawling directions out from the mountain. And you see these patterns all throughout nature, and you see it in our societies as well. You see it in the way that our economies are structured, where you have central banks that are kind of these gravitational nodes of energy, and you have people revolving around these gravitational nodes by conducting commerce with each other and borrowing and lending from the bank. You see it in our political structures, where the president has all this power that he gives him by the energy, and he receives that by the voting energy that people in our society give to him. It's almost like this perfect, intelligent design. And it started to make me think, wow, maybe there is something more intelligent that operates through this energetic fractaling pattern. I don't know for sure. Well, I do know for sure, but I didn't at that time. But everything really changed when it happened on May 17th of this year, and I started to question my faith. And I want to be totally transparent about this experience. I was high when this happened, so and that's one reason why it was a lot more violent of an awakening for me, is because I was intoxicated with THC, which I've been way higher than I was this time and never had anything like this happen. So this was quite interesting. But this happened at the end of the week, when the week leading up to it, I finally came across the interesting phenomenon that's happening in our world right now, supernatural, I'd say, and it's this UAP phenomenon. That non-human intelligence is here among us. They've been here for a long time, and I won't go down my whole rabbit hole right now, but it was very eye-opening to me that something is being hidden. I mean, you look at mythology and you look at past religions, and they all have talks and texts of higher beings coming from the stars or coming from other dimensions interacting with humanity. And how convenient it is that we have the same exact phenomenon taking place in our time. But mainstream thought often tells you to, exclude this to the domain of science fiction. It's not real. But there's been enough witnesses and testimonies and evidence that I'd say, Christ said, in the mouth of 2 or 3 witnesses, you shall know all truth, right? And we've definitely had enough people come forward and talk about this that we know that something is going on and someone is hiding it. I feel that this issue is at the root of this spiritual war that's going on. And that's why I say, where it's like we're living in the Truman Show, because there's this whole other plane of reality that exists among us, but so many people are asleep to it. So, in connection with this, so I started going down that rabbit hole, and then fast forward to when I got high that weekend. It was like something I'd never experienced. It was like, after uncovering the truth of this phenomenon, it was like my brain was plugged into this void of spiritual awareness and consciousness that I have never experienced, where I could think a thought and instantly receive an information download about it. And while I was in this state, I started to think about my Mormon upbringing more. And I started to make a lot of the connections between what Joseph Smith taught and what New Age spirituality is teaching. New Age spirituality is basically saying within each of us there's a source of the divine spark, that we reincarnate from life to life, from world to world, that there are multiple schools or places where we learn in our lives, where we can level up to different planes or dimensions, whatever it is. And I realized this is the exact same thing that Joseph Smith was teaching. that our souls have always existed as intelligences, that we return to where we came after we die, and that after that we get a body again and we go to some other higher plane of experience or thought or whatever it is. On top of it, you have Joseph's experience writing the Book of Mormon, and with what he said were angelic beings, the angel Moroni, and the way he received understanding into his mind. It's the same phenomenon that people describe when they encounter an extraterrestrial being, is receiving information downloads into the brain. People have also described that on some of these crafts that they've seen, that there's ancient symbols or symbology in there, which that was a whole thing with Joseph Smith and the golden plates, where there are ancient symbols that no one really knew anything about, or Joseph didn't know, but he was channeling meaning from them. And then the Book of Mormon itself, where it's a very beautiful demonstration of what's happening in our society right now, almost as if some divine intelligence wanted to bring this into the world through Joseph Smith. And I started to make all these connections, and it felt like I was downloading this into my brain. And then the last thing I heard, I felt in my whole being these two words. I heard "wake up." Just those two words, "wake up." And it was like something broke in my brain right after that. I heard the words "wake up," and it was so off-putting, because when I heard that, I realized that when I heard those words, and it felt like it was totally from outside myself, I realized that our whole system has been lying to us, that God really is within each of us, and to suddenly, instantly know that and awaken to that in that moment was so disorienting. I didn't know what was what at that point. I just like a plane was flying around here a second ago, planes started to fly around my neighborhood, and I thought it was like the CIA out to get me or something. And then one thing led to another. I thought my family was like in the CIA. Like I felt like I was Truman in the Truman Show. Like it felt like all the people around me were trying to like keep me from knowing the truth that I had just uncovered. And there were some things. My family is not actually in the CIA. That's why I say it was so disorienting, where after I heard those words "wake up," I was not able to tell what was what. And I actually wound up in the hospital for a week because of this. So disorienting. Now, since then, I've gotten my bearings straight again. I'm feeling good, happy, blessed to be alive. And I'm grateful for the knowledge that there is a God now. There is a God that permeates everything in existence, and we are part of that. We do continue on after we die. Our souls do. I know this. And there's a force in this world that is trying to control us and keep us naive to this truth, keep us ignorant, I should say, to this truth. It is true. And again, I just want to say, if you are going through something similar to this, whether it's a gradual, like the sunrise awakening and you're starting to piece things together, or if it's a violent, abrupt awakening like I had myself, you are not alone. And the world is going to get a lot better. I feel it in the next 10 to 20 years, when people do finally awaken, when the second coming happens. And by the second coming, I believe that as love and knowledge of God will live in the heart of every man, woman, and child. I believe that time is coming. And that we just got to do our part by, remember I talked about energy and ripples and fractals. Everything we do, every thought we have ripples outward. Everything is energy. Everything you do, every action you take does have a ripple effect. So the more we do our best to take actions for good, take action for good and truth, the sooner we'll get to that world that I know is coming. And I'll leave it there, but I do just want to say to the one person, you who are still listening to this, I appreciate you so much. You have no idea. It's your like on this video and your subscription that keeps me going. And I just wanted to let you know I really appreciate you. If you would like and subscribe this video, maybe even share it with someone who might need to hear this, I would appreciate that. Thanks.